Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a episode for Friday Night Live. My name is Kesh. I've got Sean, Mark, different setup. We have been the podcast refugees going from one room to another, different types of setup. And I'll tell you what's been consistent. We have, but producer Ryan hasn't. So guys, if you haven't heard from us, it is producer Ryan under the bus.
It's the first time I think he's ever gone under the bus. He's usually over it.
He is. But we're trying our best to make sure we record stuff and get it to you on time. My lovely hosts, Sean and Mark, we're back in our original studio where it all began. How does it feel? Home ground.
Feels awesome.
It does, doesn't it? I'm pretty excited. When I came in, I was pretty excited.
It's going to be so sad when we need to change scenery all over again very soon.
We will try our best not to. And if we do, we'll make sure that it's all set up and we're not. I really hope, producer Ryan, you publish some of those refugee episodes with cables and in the streets and using weird cameras and angles and all that sort of stuff. Because people need to see that it's not always going to be perfect. Yeah. And such is life.
Such is life.
We're very, very excited for today's episode. Before I babble on and waste your time, I know time is valuable. Today's episode is about what is happening in the marketplace, specifically with rents. Because there's a lot happening in the marketplace, from the RBA announcing to pausing of the interest rates to saying they might or might not keep it where it is based on unemployment. So they're basically going, it's getting expensive. We want it to get more expensive and we want you to be broke and unemployed. Which will put various pressure on Centrelink. So I find the way the government works is very, very interesting, but I won't go into my anti-government policy mode at the moment. But what's really happening in the marketplace, more than the Porter Davis, more than anything else for me, what's super, super interesting is watching rents rise. Have you guys noticed that? Everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everywhere. Shitty suburbs, good suburbs, everywhere. Rents are going through the roof. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, when we get into today's episodes, I will be picking your brains, guys, and we will be talking about the rental market, the rental crisis, and what could be potentially happening in the next 12 months, 24 months. We'll crystal ball this a little bit. Some of our crystal ball predictions in the past have come true. Beat my chest when they don't. I'll be like, I never said it.
Most of them have,
yes,
including the interest rate pauses.
Actually true.
Pre-May. We are in pre-May.
Correct. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I've got an interesting news article. If the screen wants to work, it'll work. It flashes and keeps disappearing. There we are. Macquarie director buys a $14.5 million Sydney home just recently. I think this was on the 12th of April. This article's come out, which is the time of we're recording it. So why do you think the Macquarie director has gone and spent $14.5 million in a trophy home in Sydney when everything is going pear-shaped, apparently?
I'll let you go for it.
Mr. Commercial, let us know.
I cannot answer that for you, so I'm just going to walk out of here. But, no, look, I think realistically, let's put things into context. You know, yeah, there's difficult times. Yes, there's ups and downs in anything you do in life from an investment point of view, and this is just one of those down periods. That's all it is. Does not mean you stop developing real estate, you stop buying it, you stop doing anything you do. You continue doing what you do, and that doesn't just go for real estate, purchasing anything. I mean, take a normal day job in, I don't know, being an admin assistant at a doctor practice or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When COVID came around, you know, some practices were busier, some were not as busy.
Correct.
All right. What are they going to do? Stop working and adapt and say, right, we need to be a COVID-driven practice now instead of a physiotherapy. Well, I don't know. Just throwing some things out there.
Do you both not think that the news is really skewed, where they go, the everyday Aussie is doing it hard and they're doing this hard and they have people on the interview, and in the same marketplace, someone from a financial institution at a very senior level dropped some serious dough, $14.5 million for a house, right? Think about it. Most people have a $800,000-900,000 mortgage and they're sweating it. This person's obviously doing well for themselves, and we're all for that. Why have they still gone? Why didn't this person go and say, wait a minute, the media says it's a time. It is really, really bad. Things are scary. Builders are liquidating. Interest rates are uncertain. There's a mortgage cliff.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see. It's like the flat earthers.
I think it depends on the astute investors and the astute home buyers. They just execute their strategy. I don't think they're worried about too much of what goes on in the macro environment. So if we take this example over here, there could be 100 different reasons as to why that purchase was made. If we want to look at it from a conspiracy theory point of view, it probably is the best time to be buying because we know officially we are in a buyer's market now. And does that mean that they got a bargain on a $14.5 million home, which should have been possibly valued at 16.5, possibly valued at 17.5? Possibly. We don't know. So we can't discount the fact that astute investors in this market are making moves and they're executing based on what they already know or based on extra information that they know. So I know that the general media is skewed in the sense where they will always look to pickpocket things and nitpick situations where it makes it look like it's doomsday scenario because we know that attracts eyeballs. We know that attracts obviously the tensed families at home that are stressed because their grocery bill's gone up. But people in this sort of situation where they've got access to probably some of the best financial advisors in the world, probably some of the best investment managers in the world, they're making moves. And I feel that the average player who's playing under a $3 million or under a $5 million portfolio, I feel they should be taking inspiration from something like this to know that the world doesn't stop just because there's a headline out. The world won't stop for anyone.
And again, I don't want to come across classist here, but I've always said this to people. If you're earning less than $200,000 per annum as a household income, and I'm specifically speaking about Sydney,
Correct.
You're not putting a dent in the market, mate. Like if you're doing it hard or you're doing it easy, it really doesn't matter because you can't borrow money like to buy a $14 million house per se in certain markets. So I really, really feel, Sean, you made a very valid point that people who know what they're doing, and by the way, and I'm not saying this because of a bias. This person who's a director at a big financial institution who's making a very smart individual in their own right, in a way, if you may.
We would assume so. Given the facts. We don't know them probably personally, don't know their strategy, but that's the assumption based on the facts.
Commerce.
Exactly.
And figuring out how to move up in life. And even them spending $14.5 million here in the article, they've used a professional buyer service to actually go and execute. So Sean, fair point, could be a $16 million house that they're getting at a discount or a $20 million house. But it was very interesting for me. I know the topic tonight is going to be about rents, but it was very interesting because it just stood out to me. Because often when you open the news, you hear about this builder's gone down or RBA, what's going to happen, the mortgage. And I've always said this and I stand by this. I feel the media has been super irresponsible. I had a rant to you today about the biggest winner in any scenario is the government, whether the market's going up, down, or the government. Because for our viewers who don't understand, Mark, and you know this, you've done feasibility, mate, and I'll ask you a few questions and we'll jump to renting. When you buy a property, right, what is the first duty you pay to the government? Just a normal property, what do you pay?
Stamp duty.
Correct. Now, if you're a developer and you are changing the purpose of that duty and you're adding extra dwellings, what are you going to do?
In the comedic sense, you can rewind that back even a couple of steps about what's the first thing you pay to the government. So let's rewind that comedically in a good way. Okay, so you're about to, what was the question again? If you just rephrase it, you're about to be making a transaction.
Correct.
What are
you're
you
about to buy a property. What is the first thing you paid the government?
You're about to buy. Great. So you're about to buy a property. What happens? You get out of your bed, which is somewhere in the state.
Correct.
That means in order to have stayed there, if you were an owner, you would have had to pay your council rates anyway. That's the first thing. And then you would have had to breathe, jump on your laptop, which you would have had to bought, which you had to pay GST in order to make that property transaction. So the list starts from the minute you open your eyes, to the day you pay your stamp duty, if that makes any sense.
Correct.
So
no, absolutely. Yeah. Stamp duty, fair point. Stamp duty.
Absolutely.
Now let's just say you're someone who's bought a R4 zoning or R3 zoning. You've amalgamated a site, so you've paid 3 stamp duties. Let's say three blocks of land that have been purchased, and now you're going to demolish that and you're going to put something, or there was nothing there. There's something called a local council contribution. So what is that? What is that fee?
Put that aside. Let's just look at a feasibility study.
Yep.
Someone might go, my end return is $10 million, but then that's probably inclusive of GST. So you've got to take away that, or your margin scheme, as they call it in different retrospect. But you've got your own taxes there as a business, plus your stamp duties as well. That a lot of people, when they're running their back of envelope feasibilities, forget to factor in, well, to a degree they forget to factor it in, and then they go, oh wow, my 25% has gone down to 10% in regards to a return. You know, it's a pointless exercise then. So I think, look, putting it, yeah, you're right. The government does take away the levies, the contributions, all of these expenses from a development point of view that chew profitability for the mum and dad that are deciding, I've sat on this block for 10 years and I'm now going to develop
profitability for everyone. So imagine if Sean owned a block of land, he bought it, he paid stamp duty, he sells it, he pays capital gains tax, right? If he doesn't, if you're an owner occupier, you sell it and you use that money in any way, shape or form, and you put it into the economy, there's some tax that is deducted. Now you're saying as a developer, you come in, you got to make council contributions, right? Then construction costs have gone up. The FISO doesn't stack up. Your interest rates have gone up from the time of you doing feasibility. And the interest that the bank is earning off you, they're paying taxes to the government on that.
Depending on who takes responsibility, when I say responsibility of the home owner's warranty as well, some builders will say there's I need to increase my home warranty.
Correct.
And they put that on the developer as well. Another essential government expense,
correct.
call it.
And when the government sits here and says people are doing it hard, there is a rental crisis, and we're going to come to this. And guys, this is super relevant. And I had a chat with you, Sean, about this. I'm like, why isn't the government turning around and saying, you know what, guys, those of you who've gone through hardship, or those of you who are struggling and you want to buy and you are unable to complete your property, how about we refund your council contribution? How about we refund your stamp duty and help you do that? No, we need that money for our roads and this and that and all of that sort of stuff. Come on, dude. It is very easy to point fingers at a private sector when you're making it harder and harder. You are almost demonizing people who are trying. And I'm not saying this because we're investors. I really, really believe you're neither are you allowing people to buy property, nor are you allowing them to rent property. And all I can see is
You're 100% spot on, but I really want to play devil's advocate in this instance. Okay, let's say we abolish everything. Let's say we give all those things back
temporarily.
No. Let's just say it didn't even exist. Let's say there were no stamps on purchase. Let's say there were nothing. Now we are excited because, sure, it's a less barrier to entry. Does that mean everyone's going to suddenly become a successful investor? Does that mean everyone's going to suddenly become a successful homeowner? The answer is no, because people play the game with the boundaries that they see. So the short-term fix is, let's remove the barriers to entry. But if the barriers to entry were not there, we would, I still believe, have the same amount of people in financial distress and the same amount of people in financial nirvana.
Yeah, I agree, because there's been a multiple debate about this, where you can take all the money from the top 1% distributed and it'll go back to the same places. I completely agree. Now, the reason I went into that, guys, was not just to have a yarn with you guys, but honestly, I think the core problem here is the government. And it's not that, because of this party or that party or anything. Just holistically, I think for 25 million people, which is a drop in the ocean compared to a lot of other countries in the world. I grew up in India. I think we're sitting at 1.4 billion people. There are more billionaires in the population of this country, for context, in India at the stage. Do you know what I mean? So in this country, which is resource rich, amazing place, one of the best places, I feel blessed to be able to live here. It really, really saddens me that the government's not doing anything about it. They put their hands up, and the investors who are trying to go out there and actually buy properties. And of course, no one's Mother Teresa. No one's going to do this out of, and they go, oh, these landlords are doing this. I want you guys to see this national vacancy rate. Has gone, anything below 3.5 or 3% is critically undersupplied. National vacancy rate is sitting at 1.1%, right? I want to show you some examples of supply that is coming into the country. So there's literally no supply into the country. Weekly listings are low as they've ever been. It's just dropping all over. So this shows under 30 days, under 60 days, doesn't matter what you look at. It is just a downward trending slope. And these are a couple of examples. So this is a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 1-car apartment in, I don't know if you guys can see it up there. It keeps flashing. I apologize for that. But in Toorak.
One of your favorite suburbs.
It is actually. It's very bougie. It is so me.
It's a nice spot.
It is. $2,200 a week for a 3-bedroom apartment, right? I want to give you guys context. This is Castle Hill, very close to where we are. We are in Bella Vista Hotel. So Castle Hill is literally the next suburb over on the correct side of the city, if I might add. $2,650. Obviously, it's a nice house. And this is a apartment in New Farm, Queensland, which is a fringe city apartment. Very nice. $1,250 for a 2-bed, 2-bath, 2-car. And this is a house in Rose Bay for $5,800 per week, if it comes up there. But there are cheaper rentals as well. But this is just an example of what the reason I'm showing you these 2,000 or 3,000. This is where the market's headed. As Toorak gets $3,000, what do you think is going to happen in the next suburb over? People from here go $3,000 is too expensive, but 2,500. Oh my God, I'm saving $500, and it has a ripple effect.
Yep.
We talk about this with pricing all the time.
Absolutely.
We talk about it. So Sean, coming back to you, mate, like according to you, for the next 12 months, do you think way things are going, the way construction costs is going, rents are going to come down or go up? What should people expect?
Good question. So the markets that were infiltrated with a massive sets of population intake, such as some pockets in northwest Sydney, southwest Sydney, south of Brisbane, north of Brisbane, west of Brisbane, all these areas are going to have a much slower uptick because they've had the most rapid uptick in rents over the past 24 months. A really strong market right now from a rental affordability perspective, we're noticing is a market like General Metro Melbourne, where historically rents have not been obviously at the same level of something like a Sydney
a good
market.
Balance between
there was a healthy market, and I think the markets like, for example, Metro Melbourne will have a phenomenal uptake comparatively to other certain markets that have the tightest vacancy rates. So it'll be a bit of a balance, but I think we've spoken about this a little bit mid-end of last year, was that the amount of pressure on the supply coming into the property market was so high, and still is so high, that developers decided to stop developing, which meant that if they stopped developing, there would be less supply in the houses, which is putting upward pressure on rents, not for the older markets that are not attracting younger families. I'm talking about specifically for a new market, people that are trying to be living into and getting access to new property. It's going to push
100%.
the prices of those exorbitantly high because there's just simply no new competition in the marketplace.
I will tell you the Castle Hill example I've shown you. I can show you houses in Castle Hill that are renting for probably $850 to $1,100 a week as well. The reason I had this example up there, today, people are charging premium for nicer houses because people do want to live in nicer houses, and especially a certain demographic. Beggars can't be choosers, and you live where you live. But when there is availability, and the biggest challenge right now that I see a lot of my high net worth clients who are looking to buy properties, who are rent investors, and that's what they want to do for the time being, they're going, we're happy to pay good rents, but I just can't find a nice house.
Yeah, it's tough.
And they're like, we'll have to build one for the specification we want, but we want to be here because of the schools, whatever it is. So stuff like that is actually, people might go, I was going to spend $3,000 or $2,000, whatever, $600 a week for it. There is a huge market out there. There is a massive, massive market out there. Mark, just coming to you, they keep saying supply is an issue. Sean said it, I said it. We talked about the feasibility, but I really want to spell this out for people. What is deterring developers to go out there and build properties? Like, think about it, right? So if you're a business person and you're going, right, there's demand, I should go and build them rapidly. Why they're not going and doing it? What's the issue?
I think going back to your government spiel before, let's talk about councils. I think that's a major hurdle that a lot of developers are facing and have been facing over the years. I mean, a shortage on supply comes down to an approval in place. Right, we've dealt with it time and time again ourselves, where registrations are delayed. I mean, why are they delayed? I mean, yeah,
Civil works,
there's
labour,
and
weather.
massive shortage of labour is also adding fuel to the fire where the civil works aren't being done, and then by the time councils are overworked, they're not getting their part done.
Correct.
It just adds what's supposed to be a 6-month title. It makes it a 18-month title at some stages.
And then and councils don't help themselves by maybe getting more employees on board in order to push stuff through.
And the funny thing is, what's funny, Porter Davis, right? They're taking on so many contracts during 2021, 22 that they started almost building that rapid team and hiring them in order to take over projects to build. But guess what was happening? the builds weren't starting because the civil works weren't happening. So they were funding this massive team that was ready to deliver to
Like
support people, wages, everything. And then everything just imploded because, the cost of doing those jobs that were signed on 2 years ago have increased by 45, 65. But they got the resources ready because they thought they were all going to be built last year.
And businesses are often struggling with grow the business, have the resource, grow the business, have the resource, and there's this constant battle. In fact, Sean, I was watching a video where they were showing me a feasibility study on a 2-bedroom apartment in Melbourne. So generically speaking, good 2-bedroom apartment in Melbourne is between 650 to 680. That's what you can expect for a reasonable 2-bedroom. There's some...
You're talking about rents or purchase price?
Purchase price, $60,000 to $680,000 roughly.
Yep.
Nicer stuff, tick over 700, rubbish under 400, but the median for something that one would look at. And basically a developer, after the entire feasibility, the $157,000 was government taxes, contributions, so on and so forth. Cost of construction was coming to about 300 grand or so. So about 400 and something change they were in it. Per apartment, they were looking at about $100,000 margin at completion when they sold it. Now, the problem is they've sold these apartments in 2021. Delays have happened, shit has happened. Now, just alone, the interest on holding them, because interest rates have also ticked over, private finance works a little bit differently, so they would have had to go on and redone their terms, and a lot of things would have changed. And then this person was basically saying, it's costing me just to break even on a 660 is closer to 550,000. He goes, if I need to sell this, realistically, I need to make $800,000 on it, right? That's how I'll buy my next site, be safe in case there are any future delays. And they've just gone, I'd rather just can it, cop my losses, and not proceed with this. And I feel like capital growth usually has been looked at from a perspective of, Sean bought a house for $1 million. Mark comes to the neighborhood, spends 1.2. I come and spend 1.4. Ryan comes and spends 1.8, and we see this over a period of time, right? But what is happening now is Sean, the developer, or Mark, the developer, is saying to the customer, saying, hey, dude, I really wanted to deliver a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartment for 600 grand. But when and if I do, they would have to be $800,000 for them to make sense. And with the new supply that will come in will default be far more expensive, and that will create a push because that is what and we've seen this in the US, I've seen this in India, we've seen this in a lot of places.
This is all sounding like it's coming together where the strategy from the government's macro raising worked. It sounds like it's worked. Just maybe I'll be keen to hear both of your thoughts on this. What do you reckon the outlook is where people will hold on to things a little bit more? They will stop spending because they'll realize that, okay, the music's over. I'm not talking about the astute investors who know now is the best time to pounce. I'm talking about the average 90% of the populace.
Yeah, no, don't worry. They'll still get sneakers and Afterpay and buy an I-20 for 7%.
And they won't bother paying back their Afterpay either. So the funny thing is, what are your thoughts on, okay, A, is it working? Great, we're going to see this. And then B, is it something to even worry about? What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think if you look at the spend that's going on now in the country, it's not really dropping. Like as in, I'm just talking everyday spend. So, I'm going to quickly just go into interest rates for a second. Now there's talk about, we've had a pause for half a minute. Now we need to lift it up again. Jobs are sitting at, 3.5%, rah. It feels like we're going to be going in this vicious circle, I feel like, where there's not really going to be a simple solution because we are in different times and we're applying old methods to
I actually have a
slow things
solution.
down.
I think I do. Okay, I want you guys to think about this, right? So they're looking at consumer price index, what you're talking about is spending reducing. The reason spending is not reducing is not because people are going and overspending. They're spending less, they're buying less, it's costing more. Do you understand?
So the costflation situation.
I am not going and having 10 lunches. 3 lunches are costing me 10 lunches. I am not going out there and buying 50 t-shirts. I'm buying 3. It's costing me 50 t-shirts. Unemployment is not a core factor of whether I should pump up the interest rates. And you're right, the economy is very different. At the moment, even if there's solid employment, wages compared to the cost of living are nowhere close. So this way of just looking at what the CPI is at, our unemployment rate is not where we want it to be.
Yeah, but the cost of things are going to come back down. The cost of things are going to come back down. When I say the cost of things, I'm talking about across building industry supplies will come back to the party.
Yep.
It'll be
When you mean come back down, they wouldn't go back to like 2018 prices. You mean like they'll normalize?
They will normalize. So when I say they'll come back down, there will be a correction, no doubt, across a lot of markets. But then they will find their new ceiling. They will find their new floors. So 100%, the effect is you're not going to see the change of people spending dropping straight away. That'll come over time where people now have to be conscious about budgets. So a lot of discretionary spend will start getting pulled back. But over time, you will start to see things normalize. And I think what needs to happen from a strategy perspective is the timing of re-stimulating the economy doesn't need to be as quick as everyone would like, but it doesn't need to be drawn out to keep this vicious cycle going the way it's going right now. Because if we have the same next 12 months, the same way we did the last 12 months in terms of rises, we have a bigger problem on our hands than groceries. Let's put it that way.
It's just silly, dude. Like for investors, like especially those guys who've bought in good locations, if you've been in the market for the last 5-7 years, your debt levels versus where the rents are sitting, you can almost go P&I now. Like the rents have really, really skyrocketed. So you're not sweating that much. You, for example, I remember you went through a liquidation with your builder. And when you made that purchase, you estimated about a 3-point-something% yield. And you're getting almost double that.
Yeah.
And you've seen uplift despite what's happening in the marketplace. So, Sean, I do agree with you, but I feel where prices are now, I don't feel building prices go back. I feel they will still go up maybe 5 or 7% from what people... So if you're building now, for example, what I mean by that is don't wait 2 years to build thinking, in 2 years later, my build instead of 300 grand will cost me 250.
Oh, absolutely not.
That's going to be I'm just clarifying that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
What Sean means is if you're uncertain about, oh my God, like, will I have massive variations? Will my house instead of 300 grand cost me 600 grand to build? No.
Correct.
Yeah. No. But where we're sitting at the moment, I feel we are about 5 to 10% here or there, and then we'll see this leveling. So Sean does not mean, again, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I'm assuming that's what you meant. You didn't mean like wait 4 years.
I'm not talking about build price. I'm talking about the fact that every build has to rely on suppliers, right?
Correct.
So it's those suppliers that are now coming back to the party. So when they come back to the party, they start entertaining prices that were bargained for 6 months ago. Coming back to the party just means that they're answering the builder's calls these days.
Correct.
And then the price correction we're looking at from them to the builder is looking at that 3 to 5% mark. It can't go to a variance of anywhere above 10% right now. So 10% is like 300 to 330. That's not going to happen in a 12-month period these days.
No.
And so one thing that we see as well in the, let's say the more, like for example, this property that was recently purchased, building in the eastern suburbs or more affluent parts of Sydney, let's say, or even Melbourne, with the type of builders you're using there, I mean, they're working on a very different scale as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Like most of the time, what I've seen in the past is a cost plus scenario because they have to. You know, like at the end of the day, it's a very transparent type of contract. And yeah, all right, they'll budget as well as they can. But should a blowout occur, which is out of their control, hey, here's the invoice. Yep, let's go to tender and try and find another few trades that can play ball here. But yeah, if it goes up, it goes up. What are you going to do? And the last thing you want is your builders to then.
But see, those sort of builders are also working with. To be honest, if I was building an architecturally built home, Sean was my builder, and he came back to me and said, "Mate, look, we wanted polished concrete flooring. We wanted this, we wanted that. I thought it would be like whatever, $3,000 a foot, meter square is coming up to 6,500. Yeah, there's umming and ahhing, but there's also you're someone who understands how the economy works, and you understand you're reasonable. The problem with a lot of project home builders is they're dealing with a lot of people who are risk averse,
correct,
and who don't understand how things work, and often they enter. And again, I'm not generalizing here, but often people enter transactions only wanting upside, and they don't want any downside, and even the slightest downside freaks them out, and it has a compound effect on the psychology of how business is done with these type of players, which has led to the demise of large businesses. Could there have been better practice? Could they have done pushback? Yes. But we also have competitors. So when a Porter Davis sits there and you stuff them around for $1,500 and they go to Metro, it's just been a whole bunch of things that has gone wrong. But I think...
But you're right. People want all the biscuit without the biscuit.
They do. But coming back, we digress. But guys, the reason we talked about the building industry for a second there, the reason we talked about pricing is to just come around and even showing you some examples of rents in the marketplace is high rents are here to stay. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what side of the coin you're on, housing is not something, even if government made sanctions tomorrow, and even with my silly ideas of refund people's council contributions, even if they did that, you cannot build a city overnight. It takes time. Yep. But the number of people coming in, because think about it, right? Get a visa, get on a plane, come here. For me, if I wanted to move to Queensland today, I got to pack a suitcase, jump in my car, get on a plane. I'm in Queensland. But I need to build a house in Queensland, even buy an existing house. It is a lengthy process, right? And hence, ladies and gentlemen, like during COVID times, these economists, these geniuses, these property gurus predicted a 40% crash. Again, they made interest rates the new COVID, and they predicted another massive crash. And it is unfortunate that even though we're intelligent human beings, we're unable to see patterns and see that, hey, last time they made COVID the issue, locked us in our houses, and real estate boomed, and I was an idiot, caught without, I was like,
I was waiting for the cliff to fall off to start buying everything for half price.
Correct.
That's what they were saying, not what we did. We ended up buying still.
100%, as we do. And then the new one was interest rates are coming. There's a mortgage cliff and everything is going to end and don't do anything. Again, they locked you in your house financially, allowing your money to work backwards while your savings diminished and you got stuck in the crossfire. Dude, these politicians on $300,000-$400,000 wages. They don't have your everyday problem. The guy buying a $14 million couldn't care less if the interest rates were 8%. They got different problems, right? Very, very different problems. So guys, please do not look, again, whether you take our advice or you don't, whether you take this seriously or don't, my only thing I want to say is please do your own research. Think for yourself. See what is happening, open your eyes, recognize patterns, and take action in the right. By sitting there, you are just losing. You're literally just losing. And Mark, I remember you and I said and we were speaking to a potential client, and he was very adamant. I remember last year, Sean, I shared the story with you where I think Melbourne's going to come back by 60%. A client of mine that we were speaking to is like,
as in correct by 60%.
Yeah, correct by 60%. And they were like, no, I don't think it's the right time. The interest rates are being designed to literally eradicate. I'm like, dude, it's a $9.5 trillion marketplace. You're saying 60% of $9.5 trillion will disappear. Anyway, he was super adamant. And I asked him this question. I said, if I believe that truly, I will sell my house, sell everything I own, and wait for that time. I would, and I would love to be right in that situation, but yet they didn't do it. So if you are a homeowner that was hoping for a drop, please don't assume if that drop came, your house wouldn't have dropped.
Yeah.
And there's a reason this hasn't happened, guys. Irrespective of interest rates, it's a demand supply issue.
Correct.
It's essential. Roof is shelter. It's essential. Tomorrow, if rice or pasta costed $100 a kilo, people will still eat it. Right? If groceries, vegetables, and fruit, are you going to deny your children fruit, vegetables? They will. Same thing with housing.
Yes, I would.
Mark as it is. But anyway, that's a wrap. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Friday Night Live. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully this one gets edited out and fast. But producer Ryan, you must have our refugee videos out there for the audience to see how hard we do this. Thank you very much. Until next time.